Hello and welcome to an emergency episode of
Oh
the
my
New
God.
Frontier.
Emergency.
Emergency. I don't know if you watch Arrested Politics, but I feel like a bit like Alistair Campbell and Roy Stewart coming on and kind of discussing the latest developments in the Middle East.
Let's
Uh,
not. Let's not
let's
go
not
there. We're
let's
not
not go
talking about
there.
politics. Politics are on the table, Max.
I wasn't going to talk about it. I was saying I feel like them because we are dealing with a massive development in the AI and e-commerce world, and therefore we felt the need to come on live and just talk about what we've both been reading and researching and building in this space. And of
I mean,
course,
Max, don't lie to them. We're just two big AI kino/nerds, and we just wanted to take 10 minutes to nerd about this. So, don't make it much bigger than it is. We're just nerd.
I feel like it's breaking international news, but maybe that's just a difference
Okay.
in opinion. So we are talking about Walmart Sparky. Joe.
Sparky. I have a feeling that there is a certain dog name theme going on. Sparky, Rufus. I mean, come on, guys. You can be a
It's
little
weird,
more.
isn't it?
I don't know what is
Why?
going on with the dogs. I mean, it's not even a cat name. I mean, you can jazz it up. So anyway, let's talk about Sparky. So, if you guys have been living under a bush, you might have not heard of it. But if you are a good listener to this podcast or reader of the AI in e-commerce newsletter, you know that Walmart just launched their AI assistant that is helping customers in response to obviously the very notorious Rufus that we've been banging on about for about 2 years now. So the cool thing, well, here is here's the gist. It's not a groundbreaking idea. It's an AI chatbot that helps customers while they're shopping on Walmart. But there's a few really interesting elements that are slightly different than Rufus. So firstly, a little bit about the macro picture. What I found really interesting about the whole launch of Sparky is that actually it comes after also the launch of Wally, which is actually their merchant-facing AI. So to me, it really shows that Walmart is really putting AI front and center in every sort of element and facet of their strategy, whether it's to consumer or whether it's to merchant. So what will be interesting is to see how this agentic commerce system, which is how they call it as well, is going to sort of reverberate across their entire value chain. So, it is yet to be seen, how maybe these two systems are going to communicate between each other, how they share data, what the training implications are. But I think there is definitely a really interesting approach, which is on both sides. Of course, Amazon is also AIing the shit out of it as well. But, I feel like they talk, at least from a PR standpoint of view, they talk excessively about Rufus, and then everything else from a merchant point of view is kind of a more fragmented, more I would say gradual rollout on their Seller Central platform. So that's kind of like one interesting element of the macro picture. Have you do you have any observations on Wally
Yeah.
as well?
I mean, I think the direction of travel of all of this stuff is very, very clear. And just to throw out a few observations, last week Andy Jassy wrote that shareholder letter. I don't know if you read it.
I
Quite
have.
a shocking one.
Beware.
He kind of openly says, with AI we're going to cut headcount, i.e., make layoffs, or do what Amazon do sometimes, which is make it so uncomfortable for people to stay that they choose to leave. By not promoting them, by not giving them raises. So he's basically saying they're going to go either through layoffs or that kind of maximum uncomfort levels that they kind of go through every now and again. But he talked about Rufus. He says that it's being used by tens of millions of customers. Obviously, it doesn't give us much insight, but Amazon has about 300 million customers. So you can kind of get a picture of the adoption. And we released a blog a while back, which looked at the AWS blog on the compute behind Rufus and to cut a long story short, based on the amount of compute that Amazon put behind Rufus, is about 40. It would be about 14% of searches. So we can see the adoption. I think another stat which I found really interesting from Capgemini is 60% of people have swapped Google for an AI search bot as their default now. That goes up to 93% if you're Gen Z. So we're really seeing that adoption of AI. So it's not surprising that Walmart have kind of followed in this direction. It's clearly the direction that we're all heading in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, the whole thing about workforce impact, let's say, same thing is happening on Walmart's side. So they actually announced that they're eliminating about 1,500 positions on their side. So I think it's really safe to say that the whole AI gonna take the jobs is kind of already in action, is not the future. And so I think it's also really important to put a pin on that, and sort of everyone should be aware that this is not a thing of the future, but it's actually happening. If you are, if you're a blue collar worker, you should be aware that AI is full swing coming.
I mean, it's not the topic of the podcast, but it's ripping up the social contract. It really is, in terms of, you go to work for a company like Amazon or Walmart or Nvidia or Google, whoever, and that contract that we used to have in place, is being ripped up by AI, because fundamentally it's going to automate a lot of jobs. It's going to create a lot of new opportunities for startups and new entrants, and lower the barrier of entry to start your own business. So I think it's overall will have a net benefit. Massive net benefit on kind of careers and fulfillment in life and that kind of stuff. I genuinely believe that, but I think certainly if you're working in a big corporate, you're going to be on the blunt end or the sharp end, I should say, of AI. But let's go back to Sparky, Joe. What else?
Fine. I think it's important to talk about these things. These are the really important shit. Sparky is whatever. It's important, but big life shit important too. All right, so Sparky, other interesting thing that I found was how it was actually powered. So obviously, when it comes to general applications, for example, Rufus, they're based off one large language model, and that's how they kind of decide on the output that they give in a particular situation. But Sparky actually is powered by a bunch of specialized microagents, which means that instead of just going through the training data of one large language model, Sparky actually goes and looks for the information through these agents, which are trained on specific retail tasks. And the idea here is that probably this kind of approach is going to outperform general purpose AI, just because it's laser focused. Every agent will have a particular task that they excel, and then Sparky plugs in and finds out the information, or finds out basically the output that it needs from these specialized AI, let's say, databases. So I think that's super interesting, and I think over time these will probably also get trained on more and more data, and therefore I would say, at least in theory goes, they would probably outperform, let's say, something like Rufus, which is just looking at kind of the overall system verse of information. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, we estimate about 15 to 20% now of searches going through Rufus. I don't think Rufus is on the cutting edge. I don't think it's as good as, if you look at the latest Gemini models, the latest Anthropic or OpenAI models, they are much better as models than Rufus. I have no doubt that Amazon will win this game in the long term. They'll be the best AI bot to shop for. If you want to discover products, Rufus will be the number one. But I think Sparky, maybe that's where Walmart is coming from, because Rufus, despite having strong adoption and being really pushed by Amazon, it's in 3 places now. It's in the search bar, it's on the mobile app as one of like the 5 buttons on your screen, and it's on detail pages. So it's really being pushed by Amazon. But maybe Walmart see an opportunity to have a better chatbot. Who knows? But
yeah, no, absolutely. I think Amazon will probably win just because how bullish they are. But yeah, I think there is definitely much more to be innovated in terms of how these like bots are powered. So I think this is going to be an interesting approach from Walmart.
I think the multi-layered agentic approach, it makes sense for an AI bot, maybe not on a marketplace. So if you think Perplexity, who haven't seen much from their shopping side since their like initial announcements with Shopify, they are very big on, they've been working on these like multi-agents and like labs and stuff where they're running like thousands of different queries at once and giving you this overall picture. I could see a new player entering in that space, someone who will query on Amazon, query on Walmart, query on Google Shopping, query on retailers' own websites. Maybe that's Perplexity. Maybe they'll look to win there. Maybe there'll be a new
Maybe that'll
entrant.
be Google. I mean, honestly, like, Google has been making all the right sounds and all the right moves in that direction. Like, they are full on swing on agentic shopping and just tell me what you're looking for at what price, and then I'll go and find it for you. So I kind of feel like they will probably also try to fill that gap.
Definitely. But let's. I mean, I can start talking about kind of how sellers can optimize the Sparky. That's probably
go on. Give us the juice. This is why we're here.
Yeah, that's what people probably want to know. And I'll say, in order to do this, a bit like our Cosmo and Rufus stuff that we've done over the years, we start from the science papers. Always, we have a great team at Azoma. We have my co-founders with PhD in AI. We have 2 full-time AI researchers in the company. We're always reading these science papers, and we found.
I told you, it's a nerd off. It's a nerd off.
Oh yeah, it's a nerd off. And we found 2. We found 2 which are very interesting, and one which maybe we can do a later episode on, which is the patents itself, which we're still evaluating. But the 2 which are fascinating from Walmart Global Technology is number 1, called Large Language Models for Relevant Judgment in Product Search from 2024.
Sounds really fucking fascinating, Max.
And the second one is Semantic Retrieval at Walmart in 2022. So the interesting thing about the latest one and the first one I mentioned is that they basically built a model which would agree with human evaluators between 85 and 89% of the time when assessing product relevance. So if you imagine when you type a keyword into Walmart, everyone's probably seen this, and you get a lot of junk back, which is completely irrelevant to the keyword because that is, a separate and different technology and a flawed technology for research, in my opinion. These LLMs are getting pretty much to what the human, controllers were saying. This is a relevant product for that search. So that is in many ways amazing. I mean, it shows why these people, why Walmart, why Amazon have been so bullish in rolling this stuff out. Again, I think it's similar to the Cosmo and Rufus relationship, where there's a bunch of stuff that they're doing, they're just improving, and you don't have to talk to Sparky to participate and benefit from a LLM search on Walmart, because they're just constantly improving this stuff in the back end. And of course, if you think, how many searches that go into Walmart result in the purchase, one would imagine it's in the single-digit percentage at best, right? Like one would imagine that conversion is very low, and going to an LLM, increasing relevance, if you can move the needle there, even probably double it, or and stop people bouncing to a Target or a Google Shopping or whatever, or just losing interest completely because they were just doing like a, it's they're searching at 12 p.m. at night quickly, didn't find it, go to bed, forget about it. It's a huge entitlement gain that they're going to have. So this is what they're going to continue to push. So kind of assessing these two papers, very similar, as I said, looking at the Rufus papers and the Cosmo papers, similar kind of stuff they're talking about. And based on those, we kind of made 5 principles which Walmart sellers can follow in order to optimize for Sparky and broader kind of the LLM on Walmart.
Go on. Number 5.
Number 5. You want to go in reverse order? Fine. Number 5, I'll go in reverse order, was to use a Zoma. So there we go. Use us. Solution.
That is number 1, my friend.
That was number 5 on my list. So
okay. Yeah, guys, the short thing, use a Zoma. All right. Number 4.
Number 4, align with customer problem solving intent. So the papers note that e-commerce queries ultimately have multiple interpretations, and this is a direct quote from one of the papers, that Apple can refer to the fruit or the electronics brand, right? So there's, that's one example, but multiple, many keywords, different intent. Again, like this is exactly the kind of stuff we've been talking about for Cosmo and Rufus for years, but you should anticipate the problems that your product solves. You should address different intentions in the product descriptions. You should think about the jobs to be done, why your product exists and what's it solving, rather than just the features, and also bring in kind of seasonal or situational usage.
Number 3.
Number 3 would be to understand your audience's language. So, and a quote here from the semantic paper that I mentioned: semantic retrieval also helps to better understand the semantics of longer queries that might contain a nuanced intent from the user. So basically here, the strategy would be to understand how your target customer describes their needs, their specific language, any emotional or functional kind of terms that they use, and kind of bring that in again to the product descriptions.
Number 2.
So this is optimizing for specific and contextual queries. So to create content using for specific scenarios, talking about your niches properly, and thinking about all the different kind of long tail uses that customers could be doing for your products, and including those in the bullet points.
And drum roll, number 1.
Oh, I've messed up the order here. So the last one is to create context through product attributes. So, again, in the papers, they this is a quote. They said they experiment with different numbers of attributes when adding the color red to the product. The kind of the input that for the LLM was much better. So therefore, they're doing a mix of using LLMs, but also informing the LLMs by the core attributes you put into the product. So that's about optimizing the back end, all the stuff that our friend Vanessa talks about, doing the files while filling all that stuff, because they're saying that in order to, let's say, harness the LLMs better and keep them a bit more on track, they are weighting more to those kind of things, as well as the kind of semantic understanding of the world knowledge that the LLM has about the customer and their context. So there's a little bit of a mix in there. So back-end attributes and all that boring stuff, all the unsexy stuff, still important.
So in one sentence summary, it just sounds like if you're optimizing for Rufus, you're probably going to be hitting pretty close to optimizing for Sparky. Is that what you're saying, Max?
Yeah, I don't. We kind of stray away from the hacks and the kind of the sugar rush techniques. I think this is all about best practice. And yeah, I think we've been helping customers optimize for ChatGPT, Perplexity, Rufus. I don't think there's much. If you're using a large language model, I don't think there's slight differences which you can pick up through reading the science papers. For example, Walmart have talked about this product attribute stuff. Rufus never talked about that. As you said, there's slightly different ways they've done it with a million of different queries running at the same time versus one major model. So there's obviously nuances, but I think the core principles of semantic optimization, contextual optimization is holds true, whether it's Walmart, Sparky, or whatever, ChatGPT, whatever else.
So, dear listener / viewer, know your customer and optimize for them. All right. Is there anything else that we should be talking about, Maxi, or shall we go back to work?
No, great to see you, Joe. And yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, and listening to the short breaking news podcast.
Lol. Goodbye.